Good. Okay. Tim, nice to have you here at M.E.S.H Camp 2015.
Thanks for having me.
You implanted a device a couple of months ago, I think.
No, it was actually it was like a year and a half
Yeah,
ago.
a year and a half ago, and you planted a device which could measure your temperature under your skin, and it was having some light effects as well. What was the motivation to do it?
Well, I mean, honestly, the truth of the matter is I feel like we have the technology, so what are we waiting for? I mean, why are we spending all this time with wearable devices when we could do this? And it turns out that the reason that we're waiting is mostly social and bureaucratic, right? I mean, any doctor in the world would tell you, like, if you try to tell your patient to wear something, maybe they're going to do it, maybe they're not. But they can always make the good choice right then and there at the doctor's office. Yeah, I'd like you to implant that monitor in me so that way I can have this data to you. If you a wearable for so long, I mean, eventually they're going to not do it. Not to mention that, but I'm sure, I mean, you're a doctor yourself, so I'm sure you know that trying to get people to make lifestyle changes, they'll cheat in any way they can sometimes to do this. Oh, well, I had 1 cigarette or 2 cigarettes, but you really can't cheat the device. You can't take it off.
Is this a big brother under your skin, or?
Well, not if you do it right, not if you do open source technology, right? Because when you use open source technology, then the people understand how it works, right? And if they feel that they're being spied on, they can just turn those features off. And that's important. I mean, that's a very important part that needs to be pushed forth in biotechnology, is this need to be open source. Because these things that start to go under your skin, that's not a device, that's you. It's your anatomy now, right? And you have a right to know how it works. And so there really needs to be a push in biology and biotech to go open source, because it's the only moral way to go.
Where do you see body modification go in general? Where do you see it's possible use cases, and where do you see its limits?
Well, I don't see it as a very limited thing. I think that once we start to really tinker around in our body, we're only going to find out that it's more and more malleable than we ever thought. Right? I think that the size of the device that I implanted was quite large, and many people, including doctors, said that is going to get infected, that is going to reject, your body can't handle that. But it actually handled it fine. It just all came into balance. Your body is a quite robust machine. But I think that in terms of like the short term and what's potentially possible is this sort of kind of beginning to make functional body art, right? This sort of kind of thing that says, I want my blood glucose to change the color of this particular light, or I want my mood to be reflected through my cell phone, so that if I have a stressful day at work and then I go to navigate my GPS home, it navigates me through a green park instead. It maybe takes a little bit more time, this sort of thing, because you don't always know when you're stressed out, right? Sometimes your body and your brain lie to you. And unfortunately, the best way to get over that is to get a really clear window in so that you cannot lie to yourself anymore. And in some cases, even offloading that stuff to other systems that are more capable of handling it than you ever will be.
Which parts of your body functionality do you think is apt to be like outsourced, so to say?
Well, I've already done my body temperature regulation system. I partially outsourced that to my house by creating a thermostat that would look at my temperature and change the temperature in my house in order to come into balance with that. However, I think that much of the things that we're really going to start to see is like stress and mood states, right? And these sorts of things, we're going to be able to outsource. It seems strange, but we're going to actually outsource our ability to realize what our mood state is, because we're not as good as we think we are at doing it. So we'll start to be able to say, hey, am I really in this mood, or am I really doing this? And then at that point, we can get corrective steps to actually behave appropriately. I mean, I think the hardest thing in the world is to figure out exactly what's going on in your body so that you can behave appropriately. I think it's a really difficult thing, and I think most people aren't mindful enough to really see that. But if you had something that was taking, let's say, the four powerful diagnostics, right? Your heartbeat, temperature, blood pressure, and blood oxygen, right? Yeah. And if you had this at a resolution of 5 seconds, right? And then you make your lifestyle about eating bacon wrapped bacon with a side of bacon, and you can watch your heart begin to decline, then you can actually really draw that comparison. And then you stop eating bacon and watch your heart begin to rise and the performance begin to rise. You can make those direct connections. They're really impossible to make anywhere else in any other way.
So body modification is not about modification alone. It might have the possible goal of making your life longer.
Absolutely.
So what do you think of this? It's like it's possible to make you like kind of terminate death by body modification. Is that possible, or what's your vision about that?
I mean, I would like to see a time in the world where we're no longer biological, where we are 100% artificial. I mean, I don't think that anybody that states humanity being, what our goals are.
Yeah.
I think that our goals involve us having to be something different, because we want to go to space, we want to explore, but we don't want to leave a heavy ecological footprint. But it takes 2,000 calories for me to sit on my fat American ass and be snarky, right? So you know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, we're going to really need to re-engineer something because that's highly inefficient. So in order to be what we want to be, it's going to require this sort of avant-garde community that's willing to take risks, and those are the people who are going to show us the way. Ironically, this typically marginalized community, a community we marginalized because of the way they look, which I thought about 150 years ago we decided all together was a really shitty thing to do, but this marginalized community is going to be the first people to get this advanced technology, and they're going to show us the way forward and how this can become useful. And that's what I think is the most fascinating about kind of meeting with these body modification people and seeing the risk that they're willing to take simply for art's sake, and simply to get in touch with what they feel is nature in the natural state, the lengths that they're willing to go. And when I look at the lengths that I'm willing to go, I see a kindred spirit there. And when I talk to them, they totally get it. Right? There's very little resistance. Whereas when I talk to people who are highly educated and totally know all of the data, and they're very rarely questioning my philosophy, they're just kind of like, oh, but that sounds really gross, and this sort of thing. So they're going to show us the way, and they're going to help us perfect these things that make it not gross and make it easier on us, right?
You see like ethical limitations. So when you open your body to, of course, like to external sources, data can go to sources where you don't want to have them.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there's a threat there, there's a danger there, or how could you handle it?
There's absolutely a danger there, but the best example that I can give of this is one that has already happened, right? Everybody remembers when the NSA scandal came down, right? And it turned out that Microsoft was giving out vulnerabilities, and Google was providing data, Facebook was providing data. But do you know who wasn't worried at all? Linux users. Linux users weren't worried at all, because the second a security bug creeps in, a million fat guys living in their mother's basement spring to life and they fix like 10 bugs by breakfast, right? This is why you need the open source community. You need them because with that, you cannot be corrupted. There's no body to corrupt, right? And so that's how I view getting around these dangerous issues, is by keeping the source open and making sure that we have as many eyes looking at it as possible. Not just government people, not people who can be corrupted, but a body that is uncorruptible because they are unplaceable. So this tends to be, and of course it's a sticking point for me. I've always been a big enthusiast of open source, but I see so many open source technologies benefiting people and that sort of thing. Now, granted, there's a lot of investors don't like to hear the word open source, but fortunately for myself, we're doing a lot of bootstrapping these days. So.